Mark 9 and Luke 9, 28 to 62. 9:9 of Mark. Now, as they came down from the mountain, that's from the mountain of Transfiguration, he commanded them that they should tell no one the things they had seen till the Son of Man had risen from the dead. I would classify this as one of those less is more moments in Jesus' life. It happens pretty often, it seems, where he's not out to make as much information as possible to be heard by as many people as possible. That's not his ministry. As to why that is, we're never told. It's one of those storylines of Jesus, again, that we just need to learn from, that he's not out to simply broadcast news indiscriminately. And he keeps the reasoning to himself. Mark 9:10, so they kept this word to themselves, questioning what the rising from the dead meant. Remember, as they came down from that mountain, they had just seen Moses and Elijah talking with Jesus about his death. So that concept of what that death meant and resurrection is now going to be the conversation as they come down from the mountain. What does the dying and rising of Jesus mean? Remember what the disciples had believed prior to this time. In other words, what does Judaism believe about resurrection? They do believe in it, Pharisees as opposed to Sadducees, for example. So many Jews believed in resurrection. Some didn't, but most did. But first of all, they believed it was only for Jews. It was for the family of Abraham. What happened to righteous Gentiles was another question, but they did not believe that righteous Gentiles would be resurrected. Secondly, they believed that the resurrection, again coming into this story, that the resurrection would come at the end of time, before the final day of the Lord, or at the day of the Lord at the end of time, and at the beginning of the new creation. And thirdly, they believe that it would happen together as a group, that whatever is going to happen when it comes to resurrection will happen to all of them at the same time. So it's the family of Israel at the end of time as a group. But of course, what happens in this conversation, I believe, between Elijah, Moses, and Jesus and the disciples, and what will actually happen is that there will be a surprise element to the resurrection of Jesus. They will realize that if Jesus is telling the story of his own resurrection, and then, of course, his departure, which is already talked about that, then the resurrection is not reserved for just the end of time. There is going to be another one before the end of time. Secondly, it's not just the group, it's an individual. Jesus himself will raise without everyone else joining him. I believe this will be one of the biggest conversations of the New Testament, and that is, will Gentiles be allowed to experience the blessing of resurrection? And of course, we will find out that yes, they will. So it's not that the Jews won't, it's that everyone who is loyal to the Father will experience resurrection. So what we're hearing at this point in the story of Jesus, thinking big picture, is a reconstitution of one of the greatest stories of the Bible, and that is, how will resurrection work? And this is that time in Jesus' life, just prior to his own death, where it seems to be a conversation both of the disciples who are with Jesus, and it will set up a conversation, of course, for the rest of the New Testament. Mark 9, 17 and 18, then one of the crowd answered and said, Teacher, I brought to you my son who has a mute spirit. He foams at the mouth, gnashes his teeth. So I spoke to your disciples, and they could not cast him out, even after they tried, apparently. And then Jesus says, if you believe all things, and that's why I think he's in the context of this here, all things are possible to him who believes. They had experienced what they would have called an impossible exorcism. They just couldn't do it, and it shocked them. And Jesus uses that idea, obviously hyperbole. All things are possible to him who believes, or places his loyalty in the right deity. Father, this father of the man said, Lord, I believe, help my unbelief. What he's talking about, and it's an interesting statement there made, my loyalty, the Father is here, and he says, my loyalty is with Yahweh, but I'm having trouble because of this moment to have my loyalty work itself out. And so it's like the cares of the world in the sower and seed parable, where the cares of this world choke out the ability or the loyalty that a person has sometimes. So Jesus is patient, and when he hears this, "Help my unbelief," he takes mercy upon the man and upon the boy, realizing that sometimes it takes time and effort, shall we say, for our feelings to catch up to what we believe. And so all things are possible, meaning even this situation of this boy. And so he casts out the demon. "I command you, come out of him and enter him no more." And then, of course, they said, "Well, why couldn't we do this? Why could you not cast out this particular demon or God out of this boy?" And we hear an interesting thing that's only said in this story here. He says, this kind, genos in Greek, can be translated as family, tribe, or ancestry, or kind. This kind of demon can only come out by prayer and fasting, which we're not sure what the prayer and fasting necessarily means, but it's interesting that he clarifies for us, Jesus does, that the world of spirits is a very personal world where some spirits are different than others. These are not mechanical at all, and they are different from each other. And so Jesus, maybe with a wink, said, well, you were dealing here with a kind of spirit that was much stronger than you probably thought otherwise. And so Jesus himself casts him out. And at the same time, and really with the same context, we hear them say, "Teacher, we saw someone who does not follow us casting out demons in your name, and we forbade him because he does not follow us." And then Jesus makes this comment. In this context, of course, he who is not against us is on our side. It's interesting thus that there must have been sections or some kind of sectarian division within Jesus' followers, where the 12 disciples were following him literally, and others were following him from afar and casting out demons, and one group of believers was opposed to another group in some sense. We're not sure much about this story, but it does show us that Jesus is more concerned about figuring out what kind of demon we're dealing with than what kind of believer we are as humans. Certainly this is much more important than Jesus would ever want us to think that we can be different, so different from another believer that we can't work together in even this kind of a story of exorcism.